Jerry spoke with a self-assured tone. I built that house, so it's mine. You'll need to move out now that we're separating, and given your part-time income, I doubt you can manage on your own. He chuckled as he handed her the divorce papers. My name is Nancy, and I'm 35 years old. I recently started a part-time job at a local supermarket. I met Jerry 4 years ago when we both worked there. After we got married, we decided to quit our jobs. At first, I wanted to keep working, but Jerry preferred that I stay home, so I became a full-time housewife. Although I missed having a job, I longed to return to the workforce. After many discussions, I finally secured a part-time position. We had been trying to start a family but had yet to succeed. I also wanted a cat, but Jerry has never liked them, so I had to abandon that dream. While Jerry was initially okay with me being a stay-at-home wife, he grew increasingly irritated when I started working part-time. He began to criticize everything around the house. You went to work again today, huh? The house is getting messy, eh? Is the laundry all wrinkled? You're falling behind on the chores, Jerry would grumble. But that wasn't true. I had tidied everything up before my shifts, and the laundry was in order. What are you talking about? I'm keeping the house just like I used to. It's clean. Can't you see? I shot back, my frustration boiling over. Even our meals were not spared from his scrutiny. Fried chicken again? Can't you make something different? He complained, despite my attempts to keep our meals varied, especially since fried chicken was one of his favorites. I put effort into making your favorite fried chicken, and I prepare a variety of dishes. I retorted, but each time I tried to explain, he only grew angrier. Are you saying you're too busy with your part-time job? You're just pretending to be busy. Don't act like your job is significant when it barely pays anything, he scolded. You're only working because you're selfish. Your earnings were fine before. Make sure you keep up with the housework. Don't make excuses about not having time. It's embarrassing to work so hard for such a small paycheck. Jerry's relentless berating made it clear that he wanted me to be a housewife so people wouldn't think we were struggling financially. His harsh words stung, revealing his resentment toward my desire to work. Every day felt unbearable under the weight of his cruel remarks, and my anger simmered just beneath the surface. An unexpected opportunity to step away presented itself when we decided to visit Jerry's parents, whom we hadn't seen in a while. Despite my ongoing frustrations with him, I welcomed the change of scenery. After a few hours on the road, we arrived at his mother's house, where she lived alone. She greeted us with warmth, and after preparing dinner, Jerry excused himself to play slot machines, leaving me to wash the dishes with my mother-in-law. However, her demeanor shifted abruptly. No longer calm, she wore a serious expression as she sat beside me while I made coffee. Nancy, she began, her tone grave, Jerry tells me you're working part-time. Why do you need to work when he has a good job? He says you're neglecting the housework because of your job. Caught off guard, I quickly responded, that's not true. I'm managing everything just fine. Her disbelief was palpable. Oh, she continued, I've heard from Jerry about how poorly you handle the housework. There's no point in denying it. He's been managing everything alone and is exhausted from work, only to come home to a messy house. You're not cooking proper meals, are you? You should quit that part-time job. They can find someone else. Your primary responsibility is to take care of the house. Focus on supporting Jerry and don't embarrass yourself as his wife. Her words were steeped in deep-rooted traditional beliefs. She had married right after school, never held a job, and fully embraced her role as a full-time housewife. Jerry grew up in a household where the wife's duty was solely domestic, shaping his expectations of our marriage. However, my mother-in-law's harsh words cut deeply. At my part-time job, I felt appreciated and valued, a stark contrast to the environment at home. It was a supportive atmosphere where I was relied upon. Hearing such dismissive and degrading remarks about myself, implying I was useless, was truly heartbreaking. My contributions both at work and home were significant, and it hurt to feel so misunderstood and unappreciated. Learning that my mother-in-law, who knew nothing of my job, had been fed lies by Jerry was a shock. Despite my efforts to maintain our home meticulously alongside my part-time position, it was disheartening to realize that Jerry had been disparaging me behind my back. I was working harder than ever, fully aware of the demands of Jerry's job and trying my best to support him. Yet, overhearing him speak poorly of me to his mother over the phone felt like a bitter betrayal. At first, I found it hard to accept the harsh words of my mother-in-law, and I felt profoundly hurt. In the days that followed, as I wrestled with these revelations, my thoughts turned to my father. Since my mother's passing, he had been living alone in our family home, which was quite a distance away. I hadn't seen him in a while due to my hectic schedule, but in need of some comfort, I decided to call him. Normally, he would answer right away, but that day the phone rang longer than usual, intensifying my worries until he finally picked up. "Nancy, it's been a while. Are you doing okay?" he asked in his calm voice, instantly bringing me some relief, though tears threatened to spill from my eyes. "What happened?" "It took you a while to answer." "If you're busy, I can call back later," I managed to reply. "No, I'm sorry," he said. "I recently fell down the stairs and hurt my back. I can't move around much right now, but don't worry, I'll be okay soon. By the way, what's going on with you? Is everything all right?" His admission shocked me. My dad, who had always been so active, had suffered a fall and injured himself. "No, I'm okay. Just make sure you take care of yourself and get better soon. I'll come to visit you shortly, so wait for me," I assured him. "Yeah, I'm okay," he replied, but his situation weighed heavily on my mind. Now considered elderly, his recovery could be slow, and the risk of further injury was a genuine concern. The thought of him navigating the steep stairs in our old family home, especially the tall steps at the entrance and in the bathroom, filled me with dread. The fear of him getting seriously hurt was unbearable. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I began to think about how it would be beneficial to live closer to my father, to be there when he needed help or to ensure he was safe. What had once been a distant wish now felt like a necessary plan. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, I resolved to build a safer, more accessible home for him nearby. I had some funds from managing the apartments left to me by my grandfather, which were originally intended for my dad. He had transferred them into my name as a precaution, advising me to keep them away from Jerry. Over the years, I had saved all the rental income, and I planned to use this money to construct a new home for my father. The thought of providing such a meaningful gift filled me with joy, especially since I had often felt I hadn't supported him as much as I wanted in the past. Building the house would be costly, and I knew I couldn't keep this a secret from Jerry. Nervously, I broached the topic, worried about his reaction. To my surprise, he seemed understanding at first. "I get it. It makes sense to get him a new house considering his age. If you think you can handle it, go for it. Just don't expect me to help if things get tough," he said. His dismissive tone stung, but I chose not to retaliate. Avoiding an argument felt simpler. I immediately started searching for a reliable contractor and began the construction process. However, it soon became clear that Jerry wasn't truly on board with my plans. He didn't voice his displeasure, but his silence was uncharacteristic. He usually spoke his mind. My suspicions were confirmed when I made a shocking discovery at the bank. $5,000 had been withdrawn from our account all at once. I couldn't recall authorizing such a large transaction, and there was only one other person who could have made it. That night, I confronted Jerry. I noticed today at the bank that $5,000 was missing from our living expenses. Do you know anything about this? I asked. His response was arrogant and dismissive. I gave it to my mother. You said you were building a house, so you must have been saving up somewhere, right? $5,000 isn't a big deal. I was astonished by his reasoning. Why would you give her that money? Your mother isn't struggling, and that money was meant for our daily needs. It's not fair to take such a significant amount without discussing it with me first. His casual misuse of our funds and lack of communication felt not only irresponsible but also profoundly unjust. This situation highlighted a growing rift in our marriage over financial priorities and mutual respect. During our heated argument, Jerry shot back. What do you know about my mother? She said she needed help. What's wrong with a son wanting to support his mother? Besides, that money was earned by me. How I use it is none of your business. If it bothers you, try earning as much as I do with your part-time job. You can't say anything now, can you? Don't ever complain about what I do again. With that, he stormed out of the room. Despite his harsh demeanor, I had always trusted Jerry and wished he had discussed this matter with me first. There could have been a way to help his mother without igniting such a dispute. Did he think I would object? Or did he simply not trust me? Our marriage, which should have been a source of unity, seemed to be driving a wedge between us. Jerry saw no issue with using our money without my consent, and the next day, he acted as if nothing had happened, heading off to work after breakfast as usual. I remained silent, not wanting to spark another argument, but I was left with a lingering sense of unease. Meanwhile, the construction of the new house for my dad was finally complete. Despite the turmoil at home, the construction company had been incredibly supportive, and I was thrilled to have created a beautiful home for him. As moving day approached, I hired movers to help pack his belongings, ensuring he wouldn't strain himself during the transition. With just 3 weeks left until he could move in, I was filled with excitement at the thought of doing something so special for him. However, during one of our discussions about the moving plans, Jerry dropped a bombshell. Hey, that house isn't for your dad. It's going to be for my mom. I have the right to decide who lives in the house I helped build. So it's going to be my mom, he declared firmly. I was stunned and responded with a mix of shock and defiance. I built that house. It's for my dad. There's no way you, with your part-time job, could have built it. My money paid for it. So don't act so entitled. It seemed Jerry genuinely believed that it was his money that had financed the house. When we had first discussed the idea, he appeared supportive, but now it was evident he had always intended for the house to benefit his mother, not my dad. This revelation felt profoundly unfair, and now I found myself in a position where I had to prove that the funds used were indeed mine, a situation I had hoped to avoid. Understanding the necessity of being honest about the rental income one had secretly saved, I decided to come clean with Jerry. You're just making up stories because you want the house for yourself. If you're going to lie, at least make it believable. He scoffed, utterly disbelieving. He stormed off, leaving me bewildered, but I knew I had to help him see the truth. When Jerry returned, his anger had visibly escalated. You tried to trick me, claiming you built that house. You're a liar. That house is mine because I helped build it. You need to leave, even if we break up. I don't think you can survive on your part-time salary. He spat. His words left me speechless. The house represented my hard work and savings, and his demand for me to leave was shocking. Sign this and get out tonight. He laughed cruelly, slamming divorce papers onto the table before heading to his room. The papers were already filled out on his part. After constantly belittling me, presenting the divorce papers in such a manner was a new low. Perhaps he thought that threatening divorce would pressure me into caving and allowing his mother to move into the house. However, little did he know, I had enough money to live independently. This was the final straw. I signed the divorce papers, packed my bags, and left for my dad's house. He was surprised to see me arrive with so much luggage, but he welcomed me warmly. After I explained everything, he patted my back and said, "You've been through a lot. You can stay with me in the new house. That would make me happy." Moving day arrived, and everything went smoothly. With my presence, we managed to move in without any issues. I found it strange that my ex-husband hadn't reached out after the dramatic scene where he claimed the house was his, but I chose not to dwell on it. I wanted to move past thinking about someone I was now divorced from. However, a few days after settling into our new home with my father, something unbelievable happened. There was a commotion outside, and when I looked out the window, I saw a large moving truck parked outside. Confused, I rushed out to speak with the movers and figure out what was happening. To my shock, the customer was my ex-husband, attempting to take possession of the house he had claimed was not mine. It became clear that Jerry and his mother planned to move into the house where my father and I were already living. Given our recent divorce, Jerry was practically a stranger to me now, and their attempt to forcefully take over the house was unsettling. The thought of Jerry's aggressive behavior filled me with dread. I quickly explained the situation to the confused movers and asked them to stop their work. Then I turned to my father and called the police. Detailing everything, they confirmed that since the house was legally mine and Jerry and I were divorced, he had no right to enter the property. His presence would be considered trespassing. When Jerry and his mother arrived, they were met by the police, and I could see panic etched on their faces. The reality of the situation seemed to finally dawn on Jerry. Amidst the chaos of his mother's distress and the police's questioning, he lost his composure and shouted, "What's going on? Why can't I live in this house?" Witnessing him in such a state made it clear to me that I could no longer deal with someone like him. To protect my father and myself, I provided the police with crucial evidence. Thankfully, the situation was brought under control with the police's intervention. Later, I learned that Jerry faced severe consequences for his actions. In his determination to move into the house, he had canceled his apartment lease and sold his mother's house, leaving them with nowhere to go. The movers charged him a breach of contract fee, and with a truck full of belongings, Jerry and his mother found themselves stranded on the street. The final piece of evidence I submitted to the police was footage of the verbal abuse Jerry had subjected me to. Unable to endure his harsh words any longer, I had installed surveillance cameras to record everything. The footage clearly depicted me diligently managing the housework while enduring his mistreatment. This evidence was pivotal in illustrating the extent of his abuse and supported my case against him. While Jerry continued to hurl unreasonable accusations at me, I used the evidence I had collected to strengthen my case. I hired a lawyer and took legal action against him, ultimately securing a settlement. The costs from the moving chaos and the settlement severely depleted the funds he had obtained from selling his mother's house, along with his savings. As a result, Jerry and his mother ended up living in a rundown apartment. News of Jerry's troubles quickly spread through his workplace. His colleagues, recognizing the flaws in his character, began to distance themselves. Now, Jerry is isolated and looked down upon by everyone at the company. As for me, life has taken a much brighter turn. I finally adopted a cat, which has brought me immense joy. My father's back has fully healed, and we're now planning a trip together with the cat. I also used the settlement money to open a shop specializing in cat products. Although the start was challenging and there were setbacks along the way, the business has steadily improved, and the shop is now thriving. Every day is peaceful and enjoyable, and I'm truly happy with the new direction my life has taken. I never imagined that standing up for my father would lead to such positive changes, but I'm convinced it was the right decision. Recently, another delightful development has entered my life. A man who frequently visits my shop, always chatting warmly and showing kindness to both customers and cats, has become a special part of my world. We've made plans to go for a drive together, and I can't help but feel excited about this new chapter. I'm looking forward to living freely and embracing the happiness that lies ahead.